love that.
Hey, this is Charles Barefoot.
And Josh McMahon.
Welcome back to Feed Me Your Construction Content. This is the now third attempt at doing this show.
Oh my goodness! Third time's the charm, though, right?
It is. That's what I understand. Yeah. So as long as you don't suffer any more technical difficulties, we'll be in good shape. Otherwise, we just may throw our computers out the window together.
I'll tell you, after Monday, we did this podcast for an hour and 15 minutes. I thought we had gold. I saw that only 3 minutes were recorded. I was beyond upset with myself for making such a careless mistake. And, well, here we are again.
Here we are again, man. Here we are again. The good news is we seem to be in better humor, so that helps a lot. But we wanted to bring the discussion to our listeners, all three of you, that we want to discuss what do we call it? Burnout. Job burnout at work. Because I think that's been weighing on both of our minds now for a considerable amount of time.
Well, I certainly think so. We've talked about it. Honestly, we haven't talked about it enough between the two of us. And Monday night we talked about it for a long time. And we wanted to do this podcast on burnout and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you're on this island and you have nobody to talk to. And I think what we found was that we kind of isolated ourselves on our own islands and didn't even realize it. And we had a great conversation about burnout and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like you're alone in this battle. And it reminded us, that conversation, that we need to be reaching out to each other, making sure we're okay. So we're in leadership roles. The weight of the world's on your shoulders, but we're a duck on water, right? Feet under the water are kicking as fast as they can, but on top of the surface, everything's cool. Everything's good, man. No problems. But, that's not true all the time. We struggle, too. Everybody, I can't speak for everybody. I can speak for myself. I have struggles, and I feel overwhelmed, and I get to the point where I feel burned out. So this show, doing it on Monday and kind of going through it, and now doing it twice today because the first time we had technical difficulties. Now this is our second time. So doing this 3 times has really been eye-opening and really showed us how much we need this, which I'm sure translates into other people needing it as well.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I completely agree. And, we, of course, Monday as we're rolling and we figured out this great. We had a great tempo going and that kind of deal. So, we'll try and keep that same spirit alive on this conversation. But I think the big thing that we were picking up on was the identification, right? Like figuring out how to identify when we're getting burned out, right? And you and I both, what I thought was interesting about the conversation on Monday, you and I both at almost the same time, without actually speaking to one another, began scaling back on our commitments because we had identified that we had overcommitted ourselves. Me personally, I was working both responsibilities as superintendent, also had gone off to do my reserve duties in Hawaii, which sounds awesome, but really time consuming. Then, of course, also helping raise a 2 and 3-year-old, got on the planning commission for the town of Malden, trying to register for, some special military education I've got to take, doing things around the house, of course, that, are required to be done anyway. Just things starting to pile on top of things. And while, I like to stay busy, I don't like to stay that busy because eventually when you're juggling it all, you have a really hard time. While you think you're doing a whole bunch of things well, turns out you're having a really hard time doing one thing well.
Yeah, I think that's as real as it gets because you can go through your normal routine, the things that you're accustomed to managing and doing on a daily basis, and then something as simple as a two-week reserve duty which for anyone who doesn't know, reserves will do 2 weeks a year where they could go stay within their same area. They could go to a different country, different states, just depends on what the unit, what the needs are.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that 2 weeks away, coming away from your projects or coming away from your day job sounds like a great thing, but you consider going on vacation for a week. How much stress is it when you go on vacation to make sure everything is lined up, everything is going to work? I don't have to answer those phone calls. And doing 2 weeks away for you when you're in the closeout stages of a project has got to be the most stressful thing you can put on someone's shoulders, along with everything else that you have going on and all the other responsibilities. So
Right.
something so simple can derail everything. And I think that's where, for me, that's where I really wanted to take this specific episode, was talking more about the burnout and the feeling of being overwhelmed and the need to be okay with being vulnerable and talking about something that is not often talked about. Because
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's not just, and like we always say, it's not just this profession, right? Like this can apply to any and all professions. And I think that's an important takeaway. So, we've got friends, families that, while we are construction centric, you can always say like, hey, there's a couple guys that are chit-chatting about burnout. Sounds pretty similar to what we're all going through right now. For all I know, you could be a grocer. Yeah,
yes, that's exactly right. This burnout, this idea is not restricted to construction managers.
No.
This can be you work at Burger King, you bag groceries at Kroger. It's like everybody manages and deals with stress on different levels. And for me, as I got older and further in my career, I was able to handle more and more stress. So it became easier to handle some things where it'd be easy for me to look down on somebody if they can't handle, a simple change in their day. But for some people that can be challenging, and it's important for us to recognize that and not alienate or push anyone away because of what they do. Everybody's important and everybody goes through this.
Absolutely, man. That's a really good point, because it's because in reality, when you start talking about guys that like you, like me, as you've gained skills in identifying burnout yourself, or gain skills in how to handle greater and greater responsibilities where burnout's more likely. Even now, I'll catch myself when someone says something, so simply like, hey, I just need you to do this. It has the potential to derail me, regardless of how well I am prepared for it. Because maybe I'm thinking about all of the tasks that I have to do that day or that week or whatever. And that one thing that he says is just like, you know what? That's it. That's enough. Can't do this. I'm tapping out. Like, that's kind of the way I view that. But again, I think, like you said, it is a vulnerability, man, that a lot of folks don't want to speak about in construction industry, because this is the industry I really know. You're around a whole bunch of folks that don't want to necessarily admit that they need a timeout, right? That they need a break. Guys want to keep on saying, yeah, give me more, give me more, give me more. But eventually it's just, nah, man, I gotta tap.
That's 100% right. And a lot of this discussion started because, like you said not too long ago, Charles, it was, we kind of both came to the same idea at the same time, and we didn't talk about it with each other. We pushed away from certain activities. So we have, for probably the last 9 months to a year, we've been active on LinkedIn pretty consistently, and we both pushed away probably about the same time. And and then we started slipping on. We wanted to do a podcast a week, and we started slipping on that. And then it became every 2 weeks, and then it was every 3 weeks. And I think for me, it was probably 2 weeks ago where I just said, I'm trying to take on too much. I'm trying to save the entire world. And, it takes time to make changes and to make things or to change the course of things. And you can't overwhelm yourself because all you do is burn yourself out. And I think I realized that I was hitting that spot.
Mm-hmm.
And I shared that on LinkedIn, which, is a crazy, scary thing to do. And even right now, just saying it out loud is like, why would you share something like that on a professional platform? And my idea behind sharing it was not for the vanity metrics or the attention. It was to kind of make it okay to tell people you're struggling.
Yeah.
And the result that I got out of that was, some people that I've come really close with on LinkedIn saying, I appreciate your vulnerability. I received so many text messages and phone calls that day on keep your head up, don't burn out, we need you, and people that I don't work with every day, people in my circle though. So for me, it was like we did exactly what we wanted to, or what I wanted to do, which was just to kind of get it out there that it's okay and that we struggle. And I had some really good conversations with people about their struggles and what they were going through, and it really just opened my eyes to all of this stuff. And then having the conversation with you on Monday, it was like we have to set the example for anybody else around us. If we want people to be more open and be okay with being vulnerable and asking for help, then we better ask for help when we need it as well.
Yeah.
And
No,
and that
100%, man.
and that's what it is, right? How many articles do you read where it's like a company says, take your time off, don't get burned out, we need you guys and we care about you, and then you watch your bosses, they just run themselves into the ground.
Yeah.
Well, whatever the boss does is exactly what everyone else is going to do.
Exactly.
And we have to do a better job of pushing away on that stuff and taking that downtime and relaxing and talking about it openly. And the last 3 weeks for me have been really awesome. Letting my guard down, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you've achieved more at work where you
Yeah,
needed to focus? Yeah.
yeah, 100%. Like objective wise, I'm back to getting things done, moving balls forward, building the culture, getting the team kind of rallied because in this whole process I put in place doing 2 weekers with each individual on the team where for 1 hour to 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever the individual needs, we talk about what's going on in their personal life, their business life, what are their goals, what are they struggling with, disappointments, what I can help them with. And this discussion, the real value of that 2 weeker is that it's not a one-way conversation. If I'm asking the individual to share things about their personal life and what's going on, the highs and lows, and how can I help them, I have to share my information too. And when I open up and they open up, we start building that bond where it's more than just boss and subordinate or however you want to look at it. Now we're teammates. And I don't view myself as being better than any of them. And likewise for everybody in our organization, I think we're all equals. We're all here to accomplish a goal.
Yeah.
And kind of stepping back and focusing on that stuff. I feel like in the last 2 weeks, our team has really grown more than in the previous 2.5 months.
Right.
But I had to recognize it before I could fix it.
Right. It's that moment of realizing it. And for me, while I don't have any direct reports, right? So I'm not directly impacting people at the same time because the audience we're generating and because of even peers and mutual acquaintances and friends and that kind of deal, to be able to say, hey, I'm burnt out, I gotta take a step back, or hey man, you seem like you're struggling with burnout, maybe maybe you should figure out what else to do, right? To be able to say those things. I can't say that to somebody if I don't myself practice it.
You have to expose yourself, or why would anyone come to you and talk to you about it if you're not putting yourself out there, making yourself
Right.
vulnerable?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and that's really, the whole this podcast, posting on LinkedIn. I don't know that there's any personal gain from that stuff, but I think there's a lot of gain from adding more value to the construction industry and how important this industry is to us, to other people, and the people that are hopefully interested in joining this industry.
Right.
And that's why we want to be open, because I also said something about, if you want to join this industry and you don't know how, reach out to people. There are plenty of people who are making themselves vulnerable and showing who they are and what's great about the industry, and they're willing to talk to you and help you get into this thing. And I hope more people get on board with this.
I agree, man. 100%.
So what do we do then, right? I mean, like, I think the one thing that really works for me is writing stuff down. Writing down how I'm feeling. Like, I can go back. I started journaling probably a year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago. But I can go back a year ago and tell you what I was feeling, why I was thinking that, and it's like all of that stuff comes back, and I'm reminded the good stuff or the bad stuff and how I handled it. So that's kind of my lessons learned, if you will.
Yeah.
So for me, it works great to journal it and have documentation, and maybe that's something that works for other people as well. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it helps to write things down. So how do I handle this? In all honesty, I have to write things down. I actually began. I'm not gonna say I began journaling. What I did begin doing was, starting to carry around my notebook again, helping to organize my thoughts, because in reality, for me, this is not true for everybody else, but for me, writing things down helps me retain the things that I need to recall, and it also gives me the ability to write down and prioritize. So I get to see my prioritized list instead of just one big line of things that I'm supposed to do, right? So that began helping me a great deal. And in addition, I mean, what also began helping on the prioritization discussion was actually prioritizing the things that I knew I needed to get done, right? And understanding things like LinkedIn and this podcast, unfortunately, were on the bottom, not the bottom, but they fell down the priority list as other things began to creep up the priority list. Can't get out of annual training, got to do that, right? Have to finish a building that I'm building. That's a requirement by contractual agreement, right? And if I want to keep my job, also a good idea. So it gets it gets to the point where, prioritization to me is the key. And then having the discipline, and I don't think we actually talked about this, but then having the discipline to not throw that list away, right? Because what you can honestly do is just end up saying, like, okay, I prioritized everything, great, and then day two say, screw the list, I'm going back in, right? Like, but in reality, that there's a level of discipline or self-discipline that you gotta have, so that you don't continuously fall back into that same pattern. And I think it's also important for folks to know, like, you're going to, like, I'm going to suffer burnout again, right? Like, this is not like this is the only time I'm going to suffer burnout. No, man, I've suffered burnout plenty of times in the past. I'm going to suffer burnout again, right? It's a question of how you handle that burnout, what you do to mitigate burnout, and then how you taught yourself to recover from it, right? Because burnout can take months to recover from, or days. It just depends on what you've done in your personal practices on how to kind of recover from those things.
I like that idea with the notebook and prioritizing. And what I've done in the past too is that you go from, say, Monday, and you write down your list and you prioritize. What I would do is come into Tuesday, and anything not complete that's still my priority, I would write that on a brand new page. And it's like it reminds me that, okay, here's my priorities, and this is where I'm going to stay focused. And that keeps me from getting overwhelmed with, I've got these 10 things on Monday, I got 5 done, these 5 I need to do on Tuesday, but now I added these 15 more things. It's like, yeah, there's always going to be more work. There's always going to be more things. We will never finish everything, right? I think that's by design, but that's okay if we give our best effort. We keep documenting stuff, and we move it forward to the next day, and it's okay, right? I mean,
Right.
I tell guys and gals all the time, it's one house, one activity at a time. Nothing else exists. Like, just minimize your view, tunnel vision, right? You need to be that horse running around the track where you've got the blinders on, and you're laser focused on this one thing at a time, and then you chip away at it. You go to the next one thing, you chip away at it, you get it done, you go to the next one. You're slowly chipping away at your action item list, and what happens is you end up accomplishing more from this maybe this mindset or this process than you will if you think you're juggling 4 things at one time. Because doing 4 things at one time, you end up doing maybe one. Doing one thing
Right.
at a time, you do 6.
Right.
And then the other piece is, you could do it one of 2 ways. You can either eat that frog, which is the one thing that you absolutely don't want to do, and get that done early, so that way the worst of your day is kind of behind you. Or some people's mindset works differently, where go do the easiest things first and get some wins, build up some momentum, that positive energy, and then go eat that frog. So I think you have to figure out how all that stuff works for you, but ultimately it comes back to having that daily routine, figuring out your priorities and how you're going to develop a system around your priorities, and then being okay with not finishing everything. I think that's the biggest piece, and that's hard to do, but I think that's where a lot of burnout and being overwhelmed comes from, because you've got this massive elephant in front of you, and you just can't eat the whole thing in a day.
Right.
And I think what I'm saying, and I tell my team all the time, it's okay to take one bite at a time and just slowly chip through that. That will somewhat keep you from getting burned out, but maybe not completely, right? I think the other side of it is leadership and construction leadership recognizing their team is burning out, or their team is falling short.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's also a key here, right? Like, so, we've definitely spoken about what, as an individual, you can attempt to do, at least what's worked for us, right? And also as an individual, what I'd like, what I think we also are trying to make clear is don't be afraid to reach out, right? So just, you don't have to say, hey guys, I'm burnt out, I'm tired of this, although that is an effort, that is a thing that you can do. But, you could say, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Is there someone that could help me kind of piece this together? That's, I don't think I have spoken with a single person ever that has said that they will not help someone who's feeling a little overwhelmed, right? Like, and yet for some reason, as individuals, we feel like we can't do it, right? I couldn't tell you the number of times people say, like, hey man, are you doing okay? Do you need anything from me? Is there anything that, we can do to support, right? Like, and I get those questions, that's all well and good, but I may still internally feel like I can't ask for something. Well, heck, man, what's the harm in asking? So I think that's extremely valuable. A valuable takeaway here is, as the individual, you also have a little bit of responsibility. Prior to us jumping into, it is 100%. Okay, not 100%, but there's a large chunk of this where the leadership or management team should be working to know somebody so that they can identify when there are key patterns indicating burnout. And I think otherwise, I don't think you could call yourself a leader, and I don't know if you can necessarily call yourself a really good manager, right? Because you're missing the team members that you're responsible for, the key signs that they're like, I'm not doing this right. There's something wrong, you know?
Well, so much of that goes to your core values, you as an individual, and your company core values. Like what is your purpose? What's your why? And for me, it's all about supporting those around me and helping them achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if that's my purpose, how can I possibly help anyone achieve their goals if I don't know who they are? And
Right.
if I don't recognize when they're struggling or when they need help. So I do put a lot of weight on my own shoulders to pay attention and recognize when things aren't going right and try and help. And with that being said, you did make a good point. Like it's not 100% on the leader. It's also on the individual. And I had a great 2-weeker with one of my guys today, and I echoed that same thing. I'm saying you need to reach out to me when you're having trouble or when you're not getting something done. And his response was, I don't want to bother you. And I said, my only purpose at this job is to support you. So if you're not reaching out to me, then I'm not really needed. And I said, furthermore, it's like, I want you to reach out to me because I can help you understand how to navigate those situations or deal with difficult trades or difficult opportunities with customers or whatever the case may be. I can help you navigate and learn from my 20 years of experience, which will help you grow at a quicker pace. And his goal is to be a construction manager. Well, I'm going to help you get to that point. It's a two-way street, and I recognized that he was struggling, and I pushed him to share his struggles and pushed him to reach out for help and not feel like he's not getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
Because I need help, right? I'm always going to need help. I spent an hour speaking with my boss this afternoon, late afternoon, and it was about some of my struggles and where I'm frustrated or I feel overwhelmed, and maybe I share too much with my boss, but we have a great relationship, and the growth that I get from those conversations and pushing me and supporting me is exactly what I need.
Mm-hmm.
So I get a lot of value from that, and I feel like we're moving in the right direction, and I'm comfortable having those conversations where 3 months ago I wasn't comfortable having those conversations, and I didn't know who to talk to, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. No,
In fact, I went and hired an executive coach outside of my company because I didn't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
So that speaks volumes, and that executive coach, if anyone's considering that route, it's highly suggested finding the right coach that really pushes and helps you grow. Because again, same type of thing. Like there's a lot of situations I deal with where I know what the answer is. I know how I want to resolve it. Sometimes you just need that confidence. And for me, this individual is a senior VP at a company on the HR side, and having someone with experience dealing with HR things, hearing what I'm dealing with and just validating or challenging me in different directions really helped me grow and help me cope with some of my frustrations. It kept me from getting to that burnout phase or the point of feeling like I wasn't good enough or I couldn't do the job,
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think it's oh man, that's so good. I think that's a huge takeaway. I think that needs to go to, I would like everybody to hear that, right? Like, is it okay, maybe you've identified that folks at your place of employment aren't the ones that you want to go to for this kind of stuff, right? Well, there's plenty of other people out there that are willing to listen, right? And that are willing to give you advice and guidance on how to succeed through burnout, right? you don't have to admit it to your bosses or your peers at work. Like that's not necessarily vital, although I would urge anybody that if you're part of a team, you should probably let that team know. But if you don't, if you're not comfortable, there's tons of other people out there that can help you get through that kind of stuff and make it out on the other side, just like what you're talking about doing. I think that's a really good takeaway.
Yeah, absolutely. So where else do we take this thing?
That's a good question, man. We were roll to roll. So I mean, we did beat up on leadership a lot the other evening, and I've been thinking about it, and we beat up on leadership a lot because we are have been will be leaders, and we make it I'd say a personal point of pride. Well, either a personal point of pride or we just consider it part of our role. Let's just say consider part of our role to be the support for our team, right? And we understand that a leader's role is not really to be the guy on the front lines doing the hard thing, right? The job is to make sure the guy on the front lines has everything they need to be successful. Now, whether or not that person takes what you've given them to be successful and use it is entirely different. And that's a different discussion, I think. But we are constantly looking inwards and saying, all right, have I done everything I'm supposed to do or can do to make sure within reason? Everybody needs to understand that there is within reason. But have I done everything I need to do within reason to make sure that this guy or gal is going to be successful? And so we hit on leadership and management pretty hard the other evening while you and I were talking, because arguably believe that leaders and managers have a very large role in this, in burnout, right? Because arguably leaders and managers could be the ones causing some of it. I think that's the largest takeaway from this entire conversation. I'd hope that leaders and managers alike are listening to this and saying, okay, yeah, maybe I need to go back and reevaluate, what I've been doing to my teams.
Especially today, I think a lot of what we're seeing, and this burnout discussion really came up from our own personal experiences, but also talking to many people in the industry, whether it be trade partners or construction managers, superintendents, or project managers. Everybody's feeling the pressure. Projects are booming. Supply chain is a wreck. Everybody is under pressure to deliver. And I mean everybody in the construction side, right? Every day is something different. You walk into one day you walk into 80% increase in pay on for gutters, right? 80% overnight. Well, you can't go back to your customers and raise your price, whatever the 2% or whatever the equation comes out to. So that's something that a builder or general contractor ends up consuming that cost, that's a struggle, right? That puts additional pressure on management or leadership of that business to how do we keep the doors open? How do we continue to pay all our people and pay them what they're worth and continue to get this work done? Oh, and then let's take it a step further. So yeah, we went up on our price 80% and it's an 8-week lead time now instead of 2 weeks. The challenge that we face today is greater than anything I can remember. And everybody is struggling with getting our material, keeping our schedule online, getting things installed, getting trades to come back and do their punch. Customers are feeling the pressure because interest rates, we don't know maybe what interest rates are going to do. They're moving out of their house because the market is so crazy that their house sold overnight. So now they need to close, but builders 2-month delayed because of supply chain issues. That puts more pressure. So you've got leadership with the builder or general contractor putting pressure on supply chain, putting pressure on the construction management team. You've got customers putting pressure on the builder, on the construction manager, on the supply chain. Everybody is squeezing from both ends, and that's why we're seeing more and more burnout in individuals leaving companies, maybe a mass exodus, and I hope that's not coming, but you do see some of that, and a lot of that's happening because I don't know that we're putting enough focus on, looking out for our people. What's our culture? Are we taking care of each other? Are we reaching out? Are we making sure people are okay? Are we really having genuine conversations? Or are we just asking, hey, Charles, are you okay? Yep, Charles is okay. Let me check the box. Right.
Right.
So I think that's where we're seeing this pressure. And construction has always, I don't want to use the word always. Construction has had high turnover at times. High turnover is typically because of your culture, because of management that doesn't take care of people. If people are bought into who you are and what you're doing, they're not going anywhere unless there's some career opportunity or something. And then when that happens, we celebrate that because we're happy that we were able to help our person get to where they want to be. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame in that stuff. And we should never look down on those individuals. We should celebrate them and hope for the best for those individuals. And I think, and I'm going to take this one step further. Anyone who knows how difficult it is to recruit, onboard, get people bought into the system, get them acclimated to what we're doing, get them part of the culture. If you know how challenging that is, we would work 3 times as hard to make sure that we're focused on our culture and we're taking care of our people, because we don't want to continue to go through the recruiting process of looking for the candidates, grooming them, selling them, getting them on board, going through all that motion, right? That's why recruiters charge what they charge, because it's an exhausting process. It's easier or cheaper to outsource it, but we're screwing up. We're screwing up. The easy part is getting people on board. It's hard. It's easy to recruit. It's easy to sell them. It's easy to get them in the system. It's extremely hard to keep people engaged and make them feel part of the family and part of the culture and part of something great. That's a leadership thing.
Right.
That's a leadership, and it's leadership because every person in the company needs to be part of that.
Right. Right.
If I'm onboarding Charles, it's not me onboarding Charles. It's me. It's Jeremy. It's Joe. It's Christian. It's the entire organization is onboarding Charles and making Charles feel comfortable. And here's the big thing. I need to be reaching out to Charles to make sure Charles is feeling comfortable and he's getting what he needs and making sure he's good, because you're coming into a new environment. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're not going to be comfortable saying, hey, I need help with this, or I need this, because maybe you feel you're supposed to already know that stuff. You're supposed to know how to do that stuff. And that's an ignorant thing for a leader to say, that you're just supposed to know. Yeah.
That's huge.
It's my job to do that stuff. It's my team's job to do that stuff, to make you part of the team.
Yeah.
And that adds to that burnout piece, and that makes it more likely that people are going to leave and go do it somewhere else. And then 3 years later, you know what they're going to do? They're going to do it all over again and go somewhere else. And the industry looks down on those individuals, but it's the industry that's failing those individuals, and we're driving our own people to the edge, and we're watching it happen. I say shame on us.
Yeah.
We have to do a better job. And this podcast specifically was to call out ourselves and anybody else listening to do better. It doesn't matter what position you hold in a company, you are important. And I think I even talked about this on Monday. I can't remember, and I can't listen to the recording since I didn't hit the record button. But
hey, you didn't. We didn't identify who did. Okay, you did. Yeah,
I did. Yeah, I'm rubbing a little bit more salt in my own wounds. But when I was recruiting at a prior company, I invested a lot of time into the recruiting and the onboarding and making them feel comfortable. Here was the thing that I did very early on. When a candidate walked in, we did the interview. The candidate left. I went and asked the person who worked at our front desk, "What'd you think of the candidate?" She says, I don't know, Josh. I don't know. Who am I to say?" I said, "You have everything to say, because you're the backbone of this operation." if you don't feel comfortable about the way the individual came in, if there was something that you sensed was off, that's not the person for me. Because how a candidate treats the person that works at our front desk, the janitor, whoever in the company, that tells you everything you need to know about that individual. And we did have one candidate come in that had an attitude with her, talked down to her, made her feel really, didn't make her feel special. And this individual interviewed well, and I refused to hire her just because of the feedback from from my key team leader, team leader. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's to my point of onboarding and recruiting and hiring is everybody. It's not, I'm not special. Everybody has to feel comfortable about what we're doing. And if they don't, I want to hear their feedback, because if I hire the wrong person and they don't match the culture, then I haven't done my job.
Yeah. Hands down.
Yeah. So I think
there's
so much on this.
Yeah.
I'm a little passionate about this section of the podcast, apparently.
Apparently, yeah. And in all honesty, that's really good. And again, I was thinking if we needed to kind of steer it back towards burnout, but I think this is a big part of this. I think there's a lot of folks that need to hear that. But what I will say is that, like, burnout happens to everybody. It will continuously happen. You're never going to avoid burnout. It eventually is going to happen. There are responsibilities that fall on the individual to help themselves, but there is a huge player in this, and that's the leadership and the management. And we feel very strongly both that they're the key ones. Now, I'm not saying you to go and hover over your teammates and say, hey man, are you doing okay? Are you doing all right? Like, are you going to be okay? No, that's not it, because that's not how you're going to get a genuine answer, right? Like, that's the other thing that I think we need to make sure people understand. Like, just because my boss walks up to me and says, hey man, how's everything going? Well, if the question is how's everything going, my assumption is right this very instant, and maybe this very instant things are going great. I am most likely, as the person being managed, not going to be like, well, glad you asked, everything sucks, right? Like, not going to be the answer, right? I had funny story on that. We'll segue this, but as a lieutenant, I had a Marine. You do your monthly counselings on junior Marines, right? I had a Marine. I came in and asked. We sat down. I was doing his counseling. I said, "Hey, man, how's it going? How are you doing today?" He's like, "Do you really want to know?" And I was like, "Fudge." And knew I had just opened up a can of worms, right? But also was really relieved that he had kind of broken the ice with that. And a junior Marine probably wasn't a good idea to speak to me in that way. But at the same time, happy that he did, right? Because we actually got to start talking about what was really bothering him. Because in reality, those counseling sessions were very much a chance for them to speak to somebody they don't just converse with on the regular, right? Who is their direct, like, they report directly to that person, right? I am their boss 100%. And for the most part, it's closed door, so I get to hear what is going through your brain. It's really important. You have to have an established relationship with people so that they feel comfortable enough to say, do you really want to know? And yes, I do. I do really want to know. Because if that relationship doesn't exist, I'm not really going to tell you what's going on.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. You have to build that bridge between each other for individuals to feel comfortable telling you what's going on or what they're struggling with. You really can't stress it enough. Like, we need to do a better job of reaching out and building those bridges. I don't know how else to put it.
That's it, man. That's it. I mean, I'd say I hate wrapping it, but I I think we've hit on some pretty key points here. And what I'd urge is that if anybody's listening and you want to know more and you want to discuss more, is to, by all means, Josh and I are more than willing to talk to you about this exact topic. And we're not going to we're trying not to blast leadership too much, but we want to hear what's going on with you. If you're struggling with burnout, you're struggling with how to approach it, and you need to talk to somebody about it, by all means, reach out and talk to somebody about it. And we're here to do that, right? Hit me up on LinkedIn. I think all of my contact information's on there. And if you can't see it, just shoot me a message and I'll talk to you anyway.
That is the point of this, Charles, is really just to open that door for anybody that's struggling. I mean, we're both veterans. We talked before about the veteran suicide rate. We want to share that we're accessible, and if you need help or you're struggling or anything, the two of us are always available, and there's other people available as well, and reach out and get that help.
Right. Absolutely. So there you go, folks. I mean, that's really what we've got.
Yeah. So I mean, really, to kind of close this thing out, this is all about making the feeling of burnout or being overwhelmed or not good enough, making it almost okay to acknowledge that and to ask for help.
Yeah.
I don't think you can stress that enough. Like, it's okay not to know, and it's okay to ask for help. And if a leader or a manager shuts you down when you ask for help, then go find another manager, another leader. Like we've said before, we're available, and there's other people available. So if you're not finding what you need, please reach out.
Please reach out. We're here to help.
I do see that it's recording, so I know we're recorded this time.
Exactly. Nah, man, I think this is also really good. I think we were able to really get into it again.
Well, good. I'm glad we had this discussion, and hope it adds some value to other people. And I can't wait to edit this and get it published.
Same here, man. And sweet, man. Go get this thing edited.
You got it, man. I should be able to get it done tonight since it's early.
Yeah.
And I'll get it published in the morning.
You the man.
All right, dude. Thanks, man.
All right, brother. I'll talk soon.
Yep. See ya.
Right.
Yeah.